It's Black Music Month, and we rap with musicians, artists, and a museum curator, all of whom center their work around the black music culture. Come on, let's jam with Artico. Howard University is known for great musicians. For Black Music Month, we wanted to celebrate by speaking with Professor Kamaluddin, a member of the duo Men. Dr. Saeed Kamaluddin and Mr. Leonard Brown discuss the significance and power of black music.
Black music is in reality American music. If you take the very essence of our music out of the fabric of American music, what you get are some European derivatives. If you take just think about all of the aspects that our music has brought and given to this country, you are left with slight European modifications. The very essence of American music is a backbeat on 2 and 4. That's African. That's our contribution. The improvisatory nature of much of American music, be it so-called rock, so-called anything, that's a contribution that is predominantly from African people and our people in this country. The emotionality that's brought to the music. Anybody who sings with so-called deep feeling or so-called soul, that's our contribution. Age has changed the people of today, they've changed their appreciation of the music because it's so easily, so readily available that I don't think they value it the same way that I value the knowledge I have.
The idea of the ownership of the music, the tangible nature of what you had to go through to obtain that music came at, I don't want to be melodramatic about it, but it came at a certain amount of sacrifice, a certain amount of inconvenience in order to get it. So then therefore, when you listened to it, you bonded with whatever it took for you to get that item. And most of the time, that was the only item that you were going to get. I can remember being in a record store and having to choose between 4 or 5 different albums. And they could have been anything. It could have been a Miles Davis album and a Prince album, and then, an Isaac Stern album or whatever. But the point was I only had enough money to buy one of those things. And the Prince album was new and hot. But everybody kept telling me I need to get this Miles album. But then I had a teacher who was saying, well, you need to get Isaac Stern with the New York Philharmonic doing Mozart's 5th Violin Concerto, or whatever it may be. So the idea of the inconvenience that bonded you with the purchase that you actually made gave context to what you were listening to. I feel personally that because the music is so readily available, for those of us who went through all that inconvenience, it's great now to have it as a convenience that I can listen to it anytime, anywhere. But the difference is that those of us who went through that have a place of context to put all of that music. It's like somebody taking me off to Mars or something. and then saying, hey, all the great repository of everything that's on this hemisphere of Mars over the past 100 years is at your disposal. Here you go, whatever you want. And now I have no idea, like, I might find something that's great, but I have no idea what it came before, I have no idea what it came after, I have no idea what it's attached to, I have no idea of any of the cultural implications that it was connected to, that created that thing. There's no context.
Most of the terms for African-American music have little or nothing to do with the substance of the music. Most of them, when you boil it down, they are marketing terms. Let's use the idea of jazz. One of my favorite jegnas is the great Yusef Lateef. Yusef Lateef hated the word jazz. He despised that word. And his whole life, his career was affected by his trying to disassociate himself from that word. Many feel the same way, but they don't take it to the extreme that he took it. The idea is when you have the ability to name something, you take ownership of it. The clearest sign of when you go to the pet store and buy a puppy is what's the measurement of when that dog is yours? The dog is yours not when you name it, but when the dog answers to the name that you've given it. And when you get these names that have been put on our musics from outside, and we answer to those names, and one of the names is jazz, and I know there are many people who hold that name sacred and holy now, but you can't get three people to agree where that name comes from. You can't get three people to say that name originally meant from the origins where it first appears in mankind. And so when you do not have ownership of the name that you are calling yourself by, you don't have ownership in a very real way of the thing itself. The social connection which our music has had up to this point, where you had to know somebody, the music was taught very much like it's taught in Africa, where one person would share with somebody else, and then they would share with somebody else. You took a person's share in a big band by sitting next to that person in the big band. As they got older and weaker, you got stronger and stronger, and finally they retired and you took over their chair. Well, this appreciation of age, this honor of the elders, when I can turn to YouTube, I don't need my elders. I punch in, what are the 10 best Miles Davis albums? And I take YouTube's word, I don't take your word. And therefore, the fabric, the social fabric, has broken down in my opinion, somewhat. I don't respect and honor the human beings who are the carriers of the music. I respect my digital source equally and sometimes more than the social connections that I needed in the past to have quality knowledge.
Yeah, and I've turned so many students onto so many different records, and I tell them the first thing is that I am actually envious of them, because I wish I could be you hearing this for the first time. Because I remember where I was and how it was. So there's that part of that social fabric you were talking about.
And I'm also envious of them because I wish I had had me to advise them about whatever was going on. I wish I'd had a person such as myself, because the next crew down the line, if this chain doesn't keep going, they won't have a person who has gotten it from the elders. Their source will have been some digital source of information. And the social fabric that we need to keep the lifeblood of this music going is missing.
Every year, millions of tourists visit Washington, D.C. to see museums, parks, and art. And now there's another stop on the tour, the HipHop Museum of D.C. We sat with the curator, Red Summer.
My name is Red Summer. I am the lead curator at the National Hip Hop Museum, and we are here in the House of Hip Hop, which is our art gallery. The mission of the Hip Hop Museum in Washington is to solidify hip hop in American history. It is our largest export that has traveled around the world and continues to grow. And so we just want to make sure that the history of hip hop is being properly handled, that we are managing it with care. We are saving the archives and artifacts of the founders of hip hop, those who blazed the trail, as it would be, to make this as big as it is, to give honor to those who laid that path for everyone who is participating in hip hop culture today, and to celebrate, right? We love to celebrate those who are a part of this culture, who are important to it, and make sure that they get their flowers. Jeremy, the founder. Jeremy has been in this space for over 20 years. This was one of the longest running hip hop recording studios in the city. And so many artists have come through. Even when I came to this space the first time, it was bustling with podcasts that were being recorded and hip hop battles that were going on right here in this space. So it was already a vibrant part of the city's landscape. And so Jeremy was a hip hop DJ. You know, his contributions are vast in a lot of ways. And so that was helpful for me to be able to come in and work with someone who was already deeply rooted in the hip hop community, who loves the culture. I am from Chicago, and I was attending a big art school there, and it was across town. Things got kind of hectic because in order to get to my school from my home, I had to travel through a lot of different neighborhoods and a lot of different schools, and it just became a lot. And so I ended up attending a small alternative school, Olive Harvey Middle College, and this school focused on getting young people from the south side of Chicago into college. So we were able to take college classes while we were still in high school. Our fearless leader, Helen Hawkins, she really believed in making sure that every child had access to a quality education in high school as well as college. And so when I graduated from Grambling State, I ended up going back to teach at the school that really helped me to go on and go to school, and I helped hundreds of other students in the time that I was there to go on to college. I went on to Atlanta from there to study museum studies at Georgia State University. And my arts and education and history and all of that just grew from there. So when I was graduating from Georgia State, they asked, what do you plan to do with this degree? And I didn't really know. It just seemed interesting to me. Like, I loved art, I loved history, like this kind of brought them both together. And so I kind of said, like in a kind of cheeky way, just to have an answer, well, I want to open a museum dedicated to hip hop. And the whole panel just sat in silence and kind of blinked for maybe a minute, but it felt like 10, right? Because neither one of us knew what to say after that. And when we opened in 2019, I sent my whole panel a screenshot or, a picture of our logo, just like, we did it. Thanks for your support. To learn about us and learn about what we do and why we're doing it, we've definitely grown in the people who support our ventures and support our community. We get all types of things that we probably wouldn't have even known to look for. But we're super excited when they pop up and people call. Sometimes people drive up from different places to bring us things. So it's really exciting.
Oh, wow.
This entire collection and my experience with the collection started with what I affectionately call Baby Biggie. It was the first object that Jeremy started collecting, and it was the first shadow box or case that I put together when we did our first pop-up show. And when we started looking through our collection and thinking about what it was that we wanted to show, we recognized that we had objects that fit into different categories. So this is, of course, we wouldn't be able to showcase everything we have, but it's examples of our collection that is connected to movies and television. So we have Beat Street and Spike Lee joints. We have Wild Style, Fat Boys. This jacket in particular makes me very happy because if you remember the song All You Can Eat, this is the jacket from that, and it has the spoons and the forks on it. So this is Marky D's jacket. His tour reach out to artists, will reach out to management, record companies, whoever has something, collectors, whoever has something that they think would be of interest to us and has an interesting story behind it. So we also have the hip hop shop. So a lot of our things are for sale. For more information about what we're doing here, you can follow us on social media at National Hip Hop Museum, or you can visit our website, hiphopmuseumdc.org.
Washington, D.C. is grappling with gentrification. Evidence of this is found in the disappearing historic landscapes. In this segment, we talk with the photographer who is capturing these parts of a vanishing D.C.
OHM is a gallery for independent and emerging artists of all disciplines. It's pretty much a platform for those emerging artists to display their work in a space that is a intimate space, a space that is one where you feel at home here, and it breaks the traditional gallery scene of like that red tape and bureaucracy. You know, there's no politics here when it comes to work being shown. Every type of artist has been featured here, but the main feature is that they're in the DMV area. That's the main focus. So they don't have to be from DC, born and raised or anything like that, but they have to be in the DMV area. And the artist can be, you know, it could be anything from abstract to I've had people do pop-up clothing shops here. I've shown cinema here. I've had dinners here. I've done a number of different things in this space, and it's just a tribute to not just me having a platform, but for artists also thinking outside the box too. Because when you see the space, it's very non-traditional from a traditional gallery scene, but you have to use your imagination and think outside the box and see how this space can work for what it is in which you're doing. So a lot of artists have been able to do that. It's pretty cool.
I saw a post on my Instagram feed about OHM, this art space, OHM, and I sent a DM to Amir and asked him, you know, inquired about what I would need to do to have a solo show here. And so we met and we talked, and obviously that's gonna happen. The show will be in August. It'll be from August 25th through September 7th. Okay, so in 2019, I published a photo book of my work. The title of the photo book is The DCIC, Art of a Vanishing City. I started taking photographs in 2004, and basically I would just take photographs of the city as I was driving around through the course of my day. If I saw something that I thought was beautiful, I would just get out the car or note where I was and go back and photograph that location. It was around 2011, 2012 that I started to notice that just about everything I had photographed had disappeared or had vanished in some way as a result of a lot of the development and gentrification that was happening around the city. You know, by its nature, photography is a way of documenting history, and certainly my book has done that. but it was not my intention to begin with. It was not my intention when I started to become a historian or a documentarian. I just simply took photographs of buildings and images that I thought were beautiful. One of the things that I'm most proud about is that the work celebrates my love for this city. There's two ways that you can see my work. The first is on the website that I created for the book, and that is thedcic.com. And you can also visit my Instagram page, Carol and Toy.
The Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, D.C. presents the Portraits Project, an exhibit that brings to life artwork with a combination of music and dance. The Portraits Project is scheduled to premiere June of 2024.
The Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, D.C. was founded 41 years ago, and there's actually a woman and her sister were visiting the Kennedy Center to see a performance of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. And as they walked out, they looked at each other and said, Washington, D.C. needs something like this. Now, this was 41 years ago. The assassination of Harvey Milk was an inspiration for San Francisco to start their Gay Men's Chorus. And then, as I said, we were then inspired about a year later. Since then, we have grown to have 5 small ensembles and a chorus of over 300 singers with a mission to raise our voice for equality for all people. Approximately 2 years ago, one of our generous donors came to us with a very generous gift and an idea to commission a piece of music that involves visual art. And this is not something we'd ever done, so right away I was very interested in this. In the beginning of 2021, we put out a call for portraits all around the world, and we received almost 400 portraits from a dozen countries, from a couple dozen states, and 80 different cities around the world. From there, we chose 9 portraits to be included in the Portraits Project.
The portrait I submitted was chosen because it has very many layers to it. So I was looking specifically at toxic masculinity and what that means and how that affects my community. So I chose that painting because one layer was obviously the toxic masculinity, and then the other layer is mental health within the Black community. And going to find help is not a feminine trait, it is a very positive way to look at dealing with really hard things and painful emotions. So the image itself has the fruit coming off his head because I was also inspired by Strange Fruit by Nina Simone, and it's just a beautiful song that describes a very painful period in the history of this country, which in my opinion is still going on today. It's just not in the same garish manner that it was back then. Being alive is a gift, and it's okay not to be okay, and happiness is always going to be something within yourself that you can work towards, and always seek help for mental help is so important. It's like hygiene for your mind and your soul, and yeah.
I heard about the Portraits Project from one of the email lists I'm on that lists calls for entry in the area, and it appealed to me, so I entered it. Then about 4 years ago I started painting young adults. I wanted to paint people of many different nationalities, ethnicities. It came during a period when we were having a lot of racial unrest in the country, and this was before George Floyd was killed. And I just felt that I was so startled and unhappy with the situation, and I felt that if people would look at each other, they would be able to identify with each other. And so I thought if I painted these pictures big, they're bigger than life. This one is 2 feet by 3 feet. And people looked at it, really looked at it. They would see themselves. They would see how close we are all to each other. And they would be able to increase their empathy for other people. I'd like the viewer, when they see this piece, to say, wow, that could be me. wow, I know exactly what that feels like, to open yourself up, to let yourself be vulnerable, to present yourself just the way you are.
So the painting that I have as part of this portraits project is a rather intimate double portrait of myself and my wife in our domestic setting. We're basically on a sofa and we're both, gazing out at the viewer. And the painting is, of course, a portrait and a self-portrait. But really the focus of my body of work, including this piece, is to show women couples as, more normalized. I'm thrilled that it's being included in this portraits project so that we can be, seen and recognized as, just the same and equal to any other couple. So I like to paint figures and portraits with a lot of colors in the skin tones and a lot of active brush movement. And I'm really trying to convey that sense of life that's pulsing under the skin and the interactivity between, people and nature and color and colorful. And my works are really focused on being joyful and passionate. Yeah, I would hope that sort of I'm the one breaking that barrier down to making us less taboo as a subject matter and just as people in the community.
So you definitely can follow along and watch the next 2 years as we progress toward the premiere in June 2024.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at whut.org. Thank you.